Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihim nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Thank you very much, Ahsan. And dear viewers, we are once again privileged and honored to have Brother Farhan Noor with us today to speak on the very important topic of IUFI Fellowship. As you know, IUFI Fellowship is the most recognized and most sought for qualification globally for Islamic finance professionals. And we thought that there cannot be anybody else who is best suited to talk on the subject or to tell us about it than Brother Farhan Noor himself. So I would like to thank Brother Farhan for his time during these last very busy moments from Ramadan. And I would request you all to actually listen to him very carefully. And if you have any questions or any queries, just don't hesitate to ask him. It's an opportunity to learn the most from the best person or the expert on this subject. So, Brother Noor, Farhan Noor, thank you very much once again. The mic is yours. Bismillah.
Thank you so very much. The pleasure is all mine. I hope you all can hear me and see me just fine. If there is any disturbance or distortion in the audio, please do let me know. Hopefully everything's okay, right?
Yeah, everything is fine. Everything is fine.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وأجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. My dear brothers and sisters and elders, all those who have joined in for this webinar today, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I trust you all are in the best of health, enjoying the most blessed month of the year, which is Ramadan, of course, and doing your absolute best to become nearer and dearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our worship, forgive our sins, and admit us to the highest levels of Jannah, inshallah. And Ameen. My name is Farhan Noor, and I'm the head of capacity building programs at AOFI. And I've been invited by the Taif Digital Institute to talk about AOFI fellowships, and more specifically, to talk about and answer the two big questions which are there on your screen. The first question is, why should you become an AOFI fellow? And the second question is, how can you become an AOFI fellow? So in this presentation today, and for the next hour or so, I'll be precisely answering these two very questions to the best of my ability. And then later on, after the presentation, or maybe during the presentation as well, we'll have a question and answer session in case you want to ask me something or want some clarifications. So let's get started. Okay, let me repeat myself. The agenda of my presentation is to answer these two big questions. Number one, why should you become an AOFI fellow? And if you're convinced that you should become an AOFI fellow, then the next logical question would be, how can you become one? One thing I need to make obvious before I proceed any further is about the definition of an AOFI fellow. So who is an AOFI fellow? An AOFI fellow is someone who has fulfilled all the requirements of the CIPA or the CISA fellowships. And CIPA stands for Certified Islamic Professional Accountant, whereas CISA stands for Certified Sharia Advisor and Auditor. These are the two fellowships or the professional qualifications which are currently being offered by IOFI. Okay, so let's start with the first big question. Why should you pursue IOFI fellowships and become an IOFI fellow? For me, the simple and straightforward answer to this question is that the AOFI fellowships gives you the knowledge base and the skill set and the experience you need to become a successful Islamic finance professional, especially if you are pursuing a career in Islamic finance accountancy or Sharia advisory or Sharia auditing. But this is just my opinion, and if I were you, I would accept that opinion with a grain of salt. You know, you should be doubtful of whatever I say because my opinion is highly biased and prejudiced in favor of AOFI, and naturally so, given the fact that I'm an AOFI employee. So obviously, I'll have nothing but good to say about AOFI, and that is why instead of just giving you the reason one after the other as to why you should pursue AOFI fellowships, I would rather give you the tools using which you can judge for yourself not only the quality of AOFI fellowships, but also the quality of any Islamic finance qualification in the world. This actually reminds me of the saying that if you give food to someone, you feed him for a day. But if you teach the person how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So what I'm trying to do here is to empower you with a perspective and the tool set using which you can decide for yourself whether AOFI fellowships are for you or not. That I believe is the most transparent, most objective, most independent way to approach this question. Now, everybody has its own criteria to decide whether a given qualification is suitable for him or for her or unsuitable for him or her. For many, price is the most important factor or consideration, which means that everything boils down to the price. And rightly so, to some extent as well, given the fact that pricing is always an important consideration in our daily lives. But this reminds me of something which I'm sure you must have also read or heard about, which is about organizations saving money on training, not realizing that the cost of having untrained employees is actually more than the cost of training them. Similarly, some people think that saving money on a qualification is a smart decision, when in fact it may actually prove to be more costly because losing even 1 dinar without getting anything in return is far more worse and costlier than spending 10 dinars and getting something tangible out of it. So anyway, the point I want to make here is that there should be a better way to judge a qualification other than the cost of the qualification. And here I'm sharing with you my three-pronged criteria to judge any qualification in the world. The three criteria are content, institution, and career. So by content, what I mean is whether the content of the qualification offers a truly powerful learning experience to you or not. This is something that you have to judge for yourself. By institution, I mean whether the institution offering the qualification enjoys a truly global recognition or not. And again, this is something you have to judge for yourself. And by career, I mean whether the qualification actually opens doors of opportunities for you or not. That being said, what we'll do now is apply these three-pronged criteria to judge the quality of Islamic finance, sorry, not Islamic finance qualification, but the quality of the AOFI fellowships, so that you can decide for yourself on your own whether AOFI fellowships are for you or not. Let's apply the first criteria, which is the criteria of content on AOFI fellowships. And if you recall, when I say content, what I mean by it is whether the content of the qualification offers a truly powerful learning experience to you or not. So the first thing we need to look at is the credibility of the content of the qualification. And the big question that we need to answer here is whether we can really trust and believe the content of that qualification to be authentic, factual, and correct. Because it's quite possible that the content of the qualification that you're studying for may actually be factually incorrect. And you wouldn't know. Just because something is written in a book and is neatly presented to you doesn't necessarily make the content to be true. It could be that you are studying blatantly false information. Other times, it could be that the content is incomplete in its description of reality, and as a result of which you end up learning something which is a half truth, and half truth is always fully false. So this is a major risk and a serious concern. So the question remains: can you really trust and believe the content of the qualification to be authentic and correct? Well, speaking about AOFI fellowships, one thing I can say in the most definite terms is that the content of AOFI fellowships are credible simply because it's based on AOFI standards. Now, as you know for yourself, these standards have been developed by a team of not less than, I would say, 30 to 40 Sharia scholars, and not just any Sharia scholar in the world, but rather some of the leading Sharia scholars of the industry, and not less than 500 expert professionals have been involved in the development of these standards, and they have been involved as members of the technical groups or members of the working groups, and they represent not less than 50 different countries or 50 different Islamic finance markets over a period of 30 years. So that's one point. Second point is, and I'll move to the next slide for this. The second point is that the AOFI fellowships are governed by a 15-member AOFI Education Board, which in turn has constituted 4 subcommittees to perform various operational tasks in a highly independent, highly objective, and highly transparent manner. This governance structure that has been set in place for the provision of AOFI fellowships is an important step to ensure that the credibility of the content of the qualification, and not just the content actually, but rather all the aspects of the qualification, such as the examination process, the translation process, and whatnot, meets the highest standards of excellence, so that you can be rest assured that the content that you're studying for is factually correct, it's authentic, it's genuine. Okay? Okay, now while at it, let me share the names of the members of the AOFI Education Board with you. The board was actually set up in 2017 and which currently comprises of 15 members with a mix of Sharia scholars, regulators, accountants and auditors, academicians, and other areas of specialization as well, which are represented. And they represent 10 different Islamic finance markets, such as the UK market, the US market, Oman, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Pakistan, Turkey, and Bahrain as well. So these are the 10 markets which these members represent. So all in all, the point I was trying to make was that if you want to judge the credibility of AOFI fellowships, then these are the points that I've shared with you. Now let's come to the second point involving the criteria of content, which is the point about consensus. And here the big question we are asking is, who and how many agree that the content of the qualification is correct and of the highest quality? So if I'm just claiming that AOFI fellowships and the content of the AOFI fellowships is correct and of the highest quality, then that doesn't really hold ground. And this is important because no matter how good the content is, you still need to have it peer reviewed, and you need to build consensus of the stakeholders with regards to its quality. So again, if we apply this criteria on AOFI fellowships, we come to realize that given the fact that these fellowships are based on AOFI standards, which are considered to be the benchmark of best practices in Islamic finance, and which are globally adopted and implemented by regulators and Islamic financial institutions in the world, we can safely assume that the content of AOFI fellowships are accepted to be correct and of the highest quality by important industry stakeholders from all over the world. Okay, the next point is about the content of the qualification, and here the nature of the content of the qualification. And here the big question is, or the big question that we are trying to answer is whether the content is theoretical or practical, or is a combination of both. If the content is entirely theoretical, then it means that the learner might not be able to excel in the real world setting. If, on the other hand, the content is entirely practical, then that also is problematic, because that it means that the learner doesn't necessarily have the conceptual or the technical or the philosophical understanding of how things actually work. And as a result of which, that professional won't be able to be creative and innovative in a real world setting. So both the scenarios are equally problematic positions. As far as the AOP fellowships go, we've done a level best to ensure a fair balance between theory and practice. And this is perhaps best manifested in the fact that in order for you to become an AOP fellow, you not only need to pass the module exams, which is the theoretical aspect of AOP fellowships, but also fill a 1-year practical experience requirement, which is a practical aspect of the AOP fellowship. The next point is about the relevance of the content of the qualification. And here the big question we are asking is, how often is the content updated? Now, this is important because if the content is not periodically updated to reflect the changing needs and requirements and expectations of the industry as a whole, then the qualification risks becoming obsolete and irrelevant. And I can personally attest to the fact that this is a very important point, something we are also struggling with, because keeping the content updated is by no means a small feat. As far as the AOP fellowships go, what we have done is, or rather what the AOP Education Board has done is to set up the Curriculum Review Committee, the CRC committee, which has the mandate to ensure that the AOP fellowships continue to be updated and kept relevant on an ongoing, continuing long-term basis. Now, there's another important point that I want to make here. You see, update is one thing and revamping is another. At one point in time, you come to a conclusion that you must revamp the qualification because updates no longer work. And you need to revamp. When I say you need to revamp the qualification, I mean you need to rebuild the qualification from ground up. And that is exactly what we did in 2017 when we revamped the CIPA qualification and relaunched it. We are right now revamping the CISA qualification as well. And we believe that given that it's almost 90% work has been completed, we believe that it would be relaunched, rather the new CISA fellowships will be launched by the end of this year or by next year, inshallah. Let's talk about accessibility. And by accessibility, I mean whether the qualification is available in the language of the preference of the candidate. Again, this is an important point because if the content of the qualification is only available in English language or Arabic language, and if you do not have proficiency in these respective languages, then obviously you will not pursue those qualifications, which means that there is an accessibility problem. Now, as far as the AOP fellowships go, what we can say is that we understand this issue, and that's why we are aggressively working towards making AOP fellowships available and accessible in at least 4 different languages within the next 2 years or so, inshallah. And those languages would be English and Arabic, as well as French and Russian languages. Okay, so to sum up, I believe I can say with confidence that based on the criteria of content, we can say that The AOFI fellowships are highly credible. They enjoy industry-wide consensus, offers a balance of theory and practice, is relevant and available and accessible in multiple languages. This again is my reading, or rather my application of the criteria of content on AOFI fellowships. Okay, now let's move to the second criteria, the criteria of institution. And by institution, what I mean is whether the institution offering the qualification enjoys a truly global recognition or not. Okay, so the first point involving the criteria of institution is the position. And the big question we are asking here is, where can the institution be placed in terms of rank, size, strength, or level? This is important because the institution offering the qualification must be well recognized by the industry stakeholders. Obviously, if the institution is ranked very low, it means that not many people have heard of the institution, which in turn will make it difficult for the employers to take the qualification offered by that institution seriously. On the other hand, if the institution is well recognized and is ranked very high in esteem, then the employers will take note of that qualification and respond accordingly. Thus, the position or the rank of the institution in the eyes of the stakeholder is quite important. Again, as far as AOFI goes as an institution, it goes without saying that AOFI is ranked very high, maybe in top 3 institutions as far as the Islamic finance industry is concerned. Frankly, you cannot get any better than that. Okay, so the second point is about the role of the institution, and the big question we are asking here is how significant is the role of the institution to the global Islamic finance industry? This is important because just because an institution is highly profitable or is the biggest or the largest in terms of asset size or branch network, or just because it's widely recognized and well known, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's also playing a positive role in the industry. And if it's not playing a positive role, then all that recognition that it has may actually carry negative connotations, may carry negative recognition, which is a bane, not a boon. And as such, we need to evaluate the institution for the role it plays in the Islamic finance industry. Again, as far as AOFI is concerned, and I say this without any exaggeration whatsoever, that AOFI is perhaps one of the most important institutions for the global Islamic finance industry, simply because it carries the weight and the mandate to secure and promote the integrity of the global Islamic finance industry, and which it has been doing so successfully for the past 30 years or so. This is an entirely positive role and one of the most important roles any Islamic finance stakeholder can perform. Okay, the third point is about the impact of the institution. And the big question we are asking here is, how big is the impact of the institution on the Islamic finance industry? This is important because the bigger the impact is of the institution, the bigger the impact of the qualification will be, the qualification that is offered by that institution. And as someone who is interested in pursuing the qualification being offered by that institution, it's important to know how big is the impact of the qualification of the institution. Again, as far as AOFI is concerned, it's a fact that the work output of AOFI, which are the active 116 standards and technical pronouncements, these standards are either fully or partially adopted on as-is basis or is adapted and used as guidelines and as benchmark in not less than 40 different countries and jurisdictions. I mean, talk about the impact of AOFI standards. It couldn't be an exaggeration to say that AOFI is literally influencing the direction of the entire global Islamic finance industry, which is as powerful and impact as there can be. The fourth point is about the reputation of the institution which is offering that qualification. And the big question that we are asking here is, how do the industry stakeholders regard the institution? This is about the perception of the industry stakeholders about the institution, whether they regard the institution as credible or as uncredible, or as important or as unimportant, and so on. And as far as AOFI is concerned, AOFI is regarded as the premier standard setting organization of the global Islamic finance industry by all stakeholders across all levels, at all levels over the last 30 years or so. The fifth and the last point involving the criteria of institution is the point of support. And the big question we are asking here is, how much support does the institution enjoy from the industry stakeholders? Obviously, if the industry is working alone, all by itself, then that's not a good sign. But if the institution is working as a team in partnership with other industry stakeholders, and that too with all important industry stakeholders, then that clearly is a good sign, which is what we want and expect from the institution which is offering the qualification we are interested in. So again, as far as AOFI is concerned, it may be noted that AOFI enjoys membership of not less than 140 regulators, IFIs, consultancy firms, universities, and other organizations from not less than 50 different countries or 50 different Islamic countries, which means that it enjoys full support and full backing of the industry as a whole. Also, important to note is that given that Islamic Development Bank, ISDB, is one of the founding fathers of AOFI, it's obvious to state that AOFI enjoys full support and backing of ISDB as well, which is a multilateral Islamic organization, perhaps the most important Islamic finance institution in this regard. Rather, an institution which is promoting the cause of Islamic finance, economics and finance, Islamic economics and Islamic finance over the last maybe 40 years or so. Okay, to sum up, I believe I can say that based on the criteria of institution, that AOFI is one of the most important institutions of the industry. It plays a significant role, has a profound impact. It is regarded as a premier standard setting organization. It enjoys the full support and backing of the industry stakeholders. And if all of this is true, then it should have a positive impact on the fellowships it offers, which in turn gives you another big reason to consider pursuing AOFI fellowships. Okay, we move to the last criteria, which is the criteria of career. And by the criteria by career, what I mean is whether the qualification has the potential to open doors of opportunities for you or not. We'll start with the first point of the criteria, which is jobs. And the big question we are asking here is, and perhaps the most important question for all of us as well, is whether the qualification increases your job prospects or not. This is important for all the reasons in the world, and I need not explain this any further. After all, if the qualification you are studying for does not increase your job prospects and make you a strong candidate for a given position or role by the employer, then you would rightly rethink your decision of pursuing that qualification. Having said that, I trust that you all realize that there are other factors as well, which comes into play when we talk about getting a job. So please do keep this in mind as we apply this point to AOFI fellowships. Now, as far as AOFI fellowships are concerned, what I can say is that the AOFI fellowships definitely increases your job prospects, and that too by a great amount. How? Simply because the moment An AOP standard is adopted by a regulator of a jurisdiction, or when a regulator recognizes AOP fellowship for the fit and proper criteria, the demand for AOP fellows automatically increases. That is because that jurisdiction will always need someone who can correctly interpret the requirements of the standard and also correctly implement the requirements of those standards. So for example, a couple of years back, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, recognized the AOP Sharia standards and made it mandatory for all IFIs working in the jurisdiction to comply with the AOP Sharia standards. Obviously, who do you think can implement the Sharia standards except those who are well versed with it and who are those who are well versed with it, but naturally those who are AOP fellows, as they have been tried and tested by AOP through the exams and practical experience requirement of AOP fellowships. And as more and more jurisdictions adopt AOP standards, the demand for AOP fellows increase, which in turn means that the AOP fellowships increases job prospects. The second point is about the trajectory. And here the big question we are asking is, how far can you go with the qualification? Or how far can the qualification take you? In other words, does the qualification allow you to assume senior management decision-making roles? That's the big question that we're trying to answer. And if we apply this criteria, or rather the point of the criteria on AOP fellowships, I believe that AOP fellowships are your tickets to the highest possible positions in an Islamic finance institution. And I say this because of the fact that regulators are now gradually recognizing AOP fellowships as part of the fit and proper criteria. So for example, the Central Bank of Bahrain, CBB, has officially recognized CIPA and CISA fellowships in its fit and proper criteria. And as a result of which, has made it mandatory for certain positions, such as the position of CFO of an Islamic bank, to have a CIPA qualification. What this means is that unless the CFO is a CIPA fellow, he may not be eligible for the position of CFO. This obviously is an incredible recognition point for AOP fellowships, which confirms the fact that AOP fellowships are in fact your ticket to senior management decision-making roles. The third point is the point about flexibility. And the big question we are asking here is, to what extent you can choose a career path or fields of expertise or career fields of your preference. So, and I ask this question because it's possible that the qualification you studied for is perhaps applicable for a given field of study only and is recognized by certain institutions only, and which does not allow you the flexibility to use it in any other manner. So in this case, as far as AOP fellowships are concerned, what I can say is that the mastery of AOP standards will always allow you to pursue different career paths of your preference, such as the career path of a regulator, as a practitioner, as an academician, and even as a consultant. And that is because all these career paths or fields fully recognize and respect AOP fellowships and are willing to prefer AOP fellows over those who are not AOP fellows when it comes to working with AOP standards. This flexibility carries weightage and must be an important consideration when you are considering one qualification over the other. The fourth point is the point about passport. And the big question we are asking here is, does the qualification gives you the passport to allow you to work anywhere in the world? That is because certain qualifications are only locally recognized and required and not globally recognized and required. If the qualification is only locally recognized and required, then it clearly means that you are stuck in that country and cannot find a job outside of that country. Now, as far as AOP fellowships are concerned, and this is based on the all-important fact that AOP standards, that the AOP fellowships are based on AOP standards, and these standards are issued by AOFI. The AOFI fellowships definitely give you the passport to work in at least 40 different countries and jurisdictions, simply because AOFI standards are adopted and implemented in those 40 different countries and jurisdictions. And as I said earlier, that as long as the country recognizes AOFI standards, there will always be a demand for AOFI fellows there. Okay. Now coming to the fifth and the last point, which is the point about benefits. And the big question we are asking here is, what other benefits are available other than the career opportunities when you study for a given qualification? Now, this is an important point as well. Career, after all, is not just about getting a job or getting a dream job. It's also about getting access to other opportunities such as learning opportunities, networking opportunities, and contribution opportunities. And you must think about whether the given qualification you are studying for is offering such opportunities to you or not. Again, as far as AOFI fellowships are concerned, what I can say is that AOFI fellows will always enjoy a privileged status in the AOFI capacity building ecosystem, which is based on the philosophy and resources that AOFI fellows should have all these opportunities that I talked about, that is the learning opportunity, the networking opportunity, and the contribution opportunity. This is a point that I'll discuss in further detail on the next slide. Right now, let's conclude the third criteria, which was the criteria of career. And all in all, if I were to summarize, I would say that if you apply this criteria of career on AOFI fellowships, you'll find that AOFI fellowships increases your job prospects. It facilitates your growth to senior management decision-making roles, gives you the flexibility to choose your own career path, and allows you to work anywhere in the world, and also allows you to enjoy a privileged status in the AOFI capacity building ecosystem. Okay, so this is the AOFI capacity building ecosystem that I was talking about. It is composed of 4 components: learn, network, career, and recognition. As an AOFI fellow, that is, after you have studied for and passed the CIPA and CSA qualification and become an AOFI fellow, you'll become part of this ecosystem and you will enjoy a privileged status here. And by privileged status, I mean that you will be given preference when it comes to memberships at board, working groups, and committee levels at AOFI. You'll be given superior discounts on different resources such as access to AOFI e-learning programs, access to workshops, and access to webinars, and so on. In fact, you will be given free access to some of these resources as well. And you will also be given priority access to other different resources and information, such as the AOFI Fellows job portal. Now, not all these components and subcomponents of the ecosystem are ready and functional at this point in time, but we intend to have these ready and functional within the next 2 years or so, inshallah. Okay, let's go back to the first question of the day, which was, why should you pursue AOFI fellowships and become an AOFI fellow? And I believe that after extensively applying the 3-pronged criteria that I shared with you on AOFI fellowships, it can be objectively concluded that Islamic finance professionals must pursue AOFI fellowships because it offers superior learning experience, or rather superior learning content, and enhanced career prospects, which is promised and delivered by a premier institution of the global Islamic finance industry, that being AOFI. This is at least my conclusion, and you may agree with it or disagree with it. That's your choice. But at least you now have the tools using which you can evaluate and judge any Islamic finance qualification in the world for yourself. Okay. The second and the last question I'll be answering in the presentation is, and this is based on the assumption that you are now convinced that you should pursue AOFI fellowship and that you should become an AOFI fellow, is that And the question would be, how can you pursue AOFI fellowships and how can you become an AOFI fellow? Okay, so the first point that you need to know is that AOFI offers 2 fellowships, and this is something I informed you in the beginning of the presentation as well, but it's okay. Let me repeat myself now and then. Those 2 qualifications are the SEPA and CISA qualifications. That's the first point. The second point is that the requirements of the 2 fellowships are at times different from each other. And that is because even though SEPA and CISA were launched together 15 years ago, that is, these qualifications were launched in 2006, SEPA was revamped and relaunched in 2017, while CISA revamping and relaunching will take place in late 2021 or definitely in early 2022, inshallah. Once the revamped CISA is launched, you will find that the requirements of both the qualifications will be the same, or more or less the same. Now let's talk about the requirement of SEPA and CISA and understand in a nutshell, how can you become an AOFI fellow? So in order for you to become an AOFI fellow, rather CISA fellow, so we'll talk about the CISA fellowship first, all you have to do is register for the fellowship and pass the exam. If you do that, you will become a CISA fellow. However, in order for you to become a SEPA fellow, you need to complete one more requirement. In addition to registering for the fellowship and passing the 4 module exams, which is the completion of 1 year practical experience requirement. If you register for the SEPA program, pass all the 4 modules, exams, and fulfill 1 year practical experience requirement, then you will become a SEPA fellow as well. In order for you to retain your fellowship and continue to be an active fellow, an active AOFI fellow, you'll need to fulfill CPD hours and pay fellowship fee on an annual basis, starting from the 2nd year of fellowship. That is all that you need to know on how to become an AOFI fellow. That was the second point. The third point and the last point I want to make on this slide is about the target audience of the 2 fellowships. Now, if you are aspiring a career in Sharia advisory and Sharia auditing, and to be honest, the CISA program is more of a is more on the advisory side rather than on the auditing side, then the CISA qualification is for you. The CISA qualification will basically help you understand the Sharia requirements for different contracts and transactions, which is something that you must know if you are an Islamic finance professional, irrespective of your area of expertise or area of specialization. In other words, CISA is a more general and more open fellowship, which should be the first Islamic finance qualification mentioned on your CV. If, on the other hand, you are aspiring a career in Islamic finance accountancy, then the SEPA qualification is for you. Majority of our SEPA candidates that we have are those who have completed their CPA and ACCA qualifications and now want to specialize in Islamic finance accountancy. So in that case, the preferred qualification for them would be the SEPA qualification. Okay, now I'll very quickly go through the details of the requirements of the fellowships with respect to the curriculum, the registration criteria, the exemption criteria, the fees and discounts, the study options, the examination process, and the practical experience requirement. Please do note that there will be some differences for SEPA and CISA fellowship, which I'll highlight as I go along. So the first point of discussion will be the curriculum of SEPA and CISA programs. On your screen, you can see the SEPA curriculum, which comprise of 4 modules and a practical experience requirement. The modules are as follows: the financial accounting reporting module, auditing assurance and ethics module, business and regulatory environment module, and the Sharia standards and Sharia governance module. We will provide study texts for all these 4 modules when you register for the program. In addition to these 4 modules, you will also need to complete the 1 year practical experience requirement. And for the CISA curriculum, all you need to do is study 48 Sharia standards and 4 governance standards. And the book which you'll be using to study for the CISA fellowship will be the AOFI Sharia standards, which is publicly available in the PDF format as a free download from the website as well, from the AOFI website, and also from other websites as well on the internet. This means that there is only one module for CISA and that there is no practical experience requirement for this fellowship. The registration criteria is the same for both CIPA and CISA fellowships, which is that you need to have an undergraduate degree in a related discipline. Exemptions from this criteria is available, but only on case-to-case basis. The important point to note here is that this requirement is not applicable at the time of registering for the qualification, but rather at the time of applying for fellowship. That is, after you have passed the exams and if required, completed the practical experience requirement, then we will check whether you are undergraduate or not. This clearly means that even if you are not yet an undergraduate, you can still pursue AOFI fellowships. Okay, so to begin with, there is no exemptions available for the CISA exam, and obviously so because there is only one module to study for and one module exam to sit for and pass. However, we do offer module exams and PER exemptions. PER stands for Practical Experience Requirement Exemptions in the case of CIPA fellowships. So first point, there are no exemptions available for the FAR module. And FAR stands for Financial Accounting and Reporting. As such, you must sit for and pass the FAR module in order to become a CIPA fellow. Second point, exemptions are available for all the remaining 3 modules as well as the PER of the CIPA fellowship. In order for you to be eligible for exemption from AAE module, that is the audit and assurance and ethics module, you need to have a professional qualification and pass an advanced auditing course. So for example, if you have the CPA or the CA qualification, you will get full exemption from the AAE module. However, if you are ACCA qualified but haven't as yet passed the P7 auditing paper, then you will unfortunately not get exemption from the AAE module. For BRE, there are 2 ways you can get exemption. First, if you have a professional qualification such as CPA, CA, ACCA, etc., which is well recognized by IFAC, then you will get exemption from BRE module of the CIPA program. You will also get exemption from the BRE module if you register for the CIPA program through an AOFI affiliate university program. And that is because BRE, we feel that the university would cover this course in their own respective undergraduate or graduate degrees, and we will simply recognize their module as equivalent to our module. However, in both the scenarios, whether you have professional qualification or you're applying through the affiliate university program, there is a possibility that instead of getting full exemption, you are offered partial exemption, which happens when we believe that the risk management part of BRE module is not adequately covered in the professional or university course. In that case, you'll have to submit a research paper on the topic of risk management as partial exemption, instead of sitting for the exam and passing it. So moving on, for the last module, SSNSG, Sharia Standards and Sharia Governance, you'll get exemption from the module if you are a CISA fellow or you're applying through an AOFI affiliate university. As I mentioned earlier, you can also get exemption from the 1-year practical experience requirement of the CIPA fellowship. Now, the exemption could be partial exemption or full exemption. You'll get partial exemption, which is 6 months out of the total 1-year requirement if you fulfill the stated criteria on the screen. Basically, what the criteria says is, If you have the required accountancy experience but lack in Islamic accountancy experience, you'll get partial exemption. Whereas if you prove that you have at least 3 months to 6 months of experience in Islamic finance accountancy by working at an Islamic financial institution, then you'll get the full exemption from the practical experience requirement. Now, there might be a situation where the CEPA candidate is unable to pursue practical experience requirement for whatever reasons, whatever legitimate reasons may have. In that case, we do offer an alternative, which is to submit either one lengthy research paper or two short research papers on mutually agreed topics. Okay, let's talk about the fees and discounts of the CEPA and CESA programs as well. For CEPA, the standard fee is $2,200, but we do offer 10% and 20% discount to those candidates whose employers are AOFI institution members, or if those candidates are registering from the non-GCC countries. For CESA, the standard fee is $1,200, and we offer straight 33% discount for those candidates who are registering from the non-GCC countries. The most important point I would like to make here is that we offer discounts of up to 70% in both fellowships if you register through a candidate registration center, such as the Taif Digital Institute. And we have such candidate registration centers in not less than 35 different countries. You can visit our website for the most up-to-date list of candidate registration centers, and you can apply through them. The reason we are able to accord such high discounts to candidate registration centers is because we're able to get group registrations of 20 or 25 candidates. This actually means that the CEPA and CESA fellowships are perhaps one of the most affordable qualifications in Islamic finance. Okay, so the big question here is how can you prepare for the CEPA and CESA exams? There are three options. First, you self-study. That is, and this is the default option. All AOFI candidates, they receive the study text and the mock exams so that they can prepare for themselves for the exams. The second study option is the option of studying through the training partners, such as Taif Digital Institute. We partner with quite a few training partners, these training partners, they basically teach or rather conduct CEPA and CESA crash courses for us on our behalf. However, please do note that these training programs offered by the training partners are not necessarily vetted and approved by AOFI. And as such, we do not take the responsibility or the liability for the quality of the programs. This is not true for each and every case, but for some of the cases. Having said that, I personally would recommend anyone to take up this option, as the availability of an expert to help you understand technical concepts is truly indispensable. It can actually make the difference between passing the exam or not passing the exam in the first attempt at least. The third study option available to the candidate is through the AOFI e-learning portal. Now, this is not currently available, and it's in progress and should be available by the end of this year or the mid of next year, inshallah, maximum. Our goal is to make the CEPA and CESA learning available in multiple languages. Another important detail about the fellowships is to do with the examinations. Now, for CEPA, there are 4 module exams, whereas for CESA, there is only 1 module exam. The passing percentage of each of those modules is 70%, which is flexible based on the complexity and sophistication of the exam. If we feel that the exam was tough, we typically reduce the passing percentage for that given exam window. If, on the other hand, we feel that the exam was relatively easy, we keep the passing percentage at 70%. All the exam questions are multiple choice questions, MCQs, where you have to choose the one best answer out of the 4 options given to you. Some of the questions are scenario based, in which case you will have one scenario given to you, and based on that scenario, you'll be asked to answer 3 or 4 different questions. So these types of questions are called vignettes, and at the end of the day, they are also MCQ questions. For the last 13 years or so, all exams were being physically conducted, but now for the last 2 to 3 years, we have been experimenting with online exams as well, and we have reached the point where we now basically prefer online examinations over physical examinations, unless the exam center in a given jurisdiction is unable to conduct online exams. The CIPA exams are conducted twice every year, that is in June and December, whereas CISA exams are typically conducted every quarter. The highest exam duration is for the FAR module of the CIPA program and for the CISA program, which is 3 hours. And the highest number of questions in a given exam is again for the FAR module of the CIPA program and for the CISA program, which is 100 questions. Now let's talk about the practical experience requirement for the CIPA fellowship. This is a 1-year practical experience requirement, or rather an internship program in which the CIPA candidate must work at a pre-approved Islamic financial institution under a pre-approved supervisor to complete pre-approved tasks. The candidate then submits periodic reports to AOFI, which is evaluated for either a pass or did not pass grade. As I told you earlier, alternative to practical experience requirement, or PER, is also available. And the alternative is to submit research papers. But this alternative is available on case-to-case basis. Okay, so this sums up the discussion on the requirements of the AOFI fellowships and hopefully answers the question that we set out to answer. That is, how can we pursue AOFI fellowships and how can we become an AOFI fellow? Now let's very quickly talk about the future of AOFI fellowships. That is, what can you expect of AOFI fellowships in the foreseeable future? So there are quite a few projects we are currently working on and quite a few projects which are in pipeline. We believe that all these projects will be completed within the next 2 years or so, inshallah. Okay, now let me share one very important decision that we have taken with regards to the CISA qualification. As you know that we are currently revamping this qualification. Now, in the revamping process, we came to a conclusion that we need to split the CISA program into 2 separate, distinct, independent qualifications. Those being the CSAD program, which stands for Certified Sharia Advisor, and the CSAU program, which stands for Certified Sharia Auditor. This means that once the CSAD and CSAU qualifications are launched, the CISA qualification, as we have it today, will be discontinued. Now, you may ask as to what will happen to all those who have earned the CISA qualification over the last 15 years or so. To be honest, we haven't as yet decided, but my own personal guess would be that we would offer the CISA fellows the opportunity to convert their qualification to either CSAD or CSAU qualification. Actually, this would not be an offer as such, but rather be based on the primary expertise of the CISA fellow. So if you happen, if the primary expertise of the CISA fellow is Sharia advisory, then the CISA qualification will be converted to CSAD. And if the primary qualification of the CISA fellow is auditing, then the CISA fellowship will be converted to CSAU qualification. I think this makes the most logical sense, at least to me, and I hope it does to you as well. Secondly, we will be launching the CIPA Arabic and Russian programs. The French version of CIPA at the moment is slightly suspect, as we lost a sponsor for the project, but nevertheless, this is something which is in the pipeline. Third, as I just informed you, that we are working on the AOFI e-learning portal, and which is something you can look forward to within the next 2 years or so. hopefully by the end of this year or the starting of next year, inshallah. And fourth, we will also be launching the AOFE Fellows Q&A forum, which will allow the fellows and even non-fellows as well to talk to each other and ask each other questions and improve their knowledge base and skill set on an ongoing, continuing, long-term basis. So these are some of the projects which are in progress and some of the projects which are in pipeline. The very last thing that I want to talk about in my presentation today is the governance aspect of the capacity building programs offered by AOFE. This is an important consideration because governance system ensures that we will continue to offer fellowships in a highly objective, highly transparent, highly independent manner, and that too of the highest quality possible. In this regard, the Education Board, which is the primary organ of governance for all initiatives and activities of the capacity building department of AOFE, has actually constituted these four subcommittees. And these four subcommittees will streamline those initiatives and activities of the capacity building department. That is all from me. I understand that I've taken a lot of time and might have even exhausted you in process. I apologize for the dryness of the topic. And to be honest, I did my level best to keep you engaged, but there is so much I can do. To conclude, let me thank you all for patiently listening to me and also thank the Taif Digital Institute for having me here today. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and fi amanillah.
Thank you very much, Brother Farhan, for a very insightful presentation. And I must say that I feel sold and like you have convinced, at least me, highly convinced. I was already sold, but you have done nothing more could be done to convince. There cannot be a much more convincing presentation that you have done. Thank you very much. There are like few questions I would like to. Some people have asked. One person has asked, can a law student apply for this fellowship, especially the CSA?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
The short answer, I'll keep it short.
Great, great. Brother Afrad Arfin is also online. Assalamu alaikum, brother. He's asking if the SEPA modules updated, how can an existing SEPA fellow access them? Thank you, Brother Farhan. I think they will be available when they are updated, right?
Yes, you are right. Right now, it's not updated. Some of the standards have been superseded. We are wary of the fact and we are working towards updating some of the chapters, in fact, the entire study text. And that is why we have constituted the Curriculum Review Committee, which carries the mandate to perform this task. We believe that the task will be initiated within the next 1 month or so, and over a period of 6 months or so, we will have the updated version or the second version of all the 4 modules of the SEPA program, inshallah. And once those are available, actually the existing SEPA modules are available. If you are interested in accessing the PDF version, and this is only available to AOFE fellows, by the way, otherwise we don't share the PDF version. If you are interested, then I can talk to the management and make it available for you. But this is something I cannot confirm right now.
Sure, thank you. Another question, like just for the curiosity and further understanding, like this experience requirement that you mentioned, can this experience be acquired? Like, is it necessary that you do it before you appear for the exam, or you can acquire it after passing the exam?
You can start the practical experience requirement immediately after enrolling for the SEPA program. So there is no requirement that you must complete or rather pass any module of the program. You can start immediately after registration, but we strongly recommend that the person should at least pass the FAR module.
Correct. Okay. And brother, like, is there any number of attempts that somebody can make to pass the exam?
The attempts are unlimited, but unfortunately, it would cost you. So that is, and there is a reason. The reason is that we need to pay the exam centers in different jurisdictions, and that is why we have a exam reset fee of $200, which I know is quite expensive. If the candidate is unable to afford, and we are able to convince the exam center to reduce some of their fees, then we can offer the exam reset option for $100 as well. But to answer your question, unlimited attempts, but then you have to pay for additional.
And can they appear in like one exam at a time? That like SEPA has four different subjects. So can they like appear in two and then try to pass them and then appear in the next two? Is it
Yes,
possible, or
yes.
they need to pass everything in one go?
No, they can opt for any module exam first, and they can sit for all the four modules in one go. So if they want to complete CPA qualification in June or December, they can enroll for all the four modules and sit for all the four exams in one go. The way we have set up the examination dates and timings is to facilitate this kind of thing to happen.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. There are some other questions. There's one question that what main changes could be expected in the curriculum of CSAD and CSAU, and how different they would be from current CSAA curriculum?
Okay, so the current CSAA curriculum is based on 48 standards, as I mentioned. The new qualifications will have their own dedicated study text. So they will be written in a more textbook style. Right now, you have to study for the CISA qualification using the AOFI Sharia standards. Okay, but with CSAU and CSAD, you will be provided with dedicated study text. This is one difference. Second difference is you'll dive into the details of the matter. So if you're talking about Sharia advisory, you'll really dive into the detail of Sharia advisory. It won't be at a surface level, which is unfortunately at the moment. The CSAD will only be available in Arabic language. It will not be translated to any other language, and it will not be available in English language, for the simple reason that this qualification is targeted at aspiring Sharia scholars of the industry. The CSAU qualification, which is the auditing qualification, again, will dive into the details of Sharia auditing. And here again, you will have 4 modules to pass and 1 year practical experience requirement to complete. So these are a couple of differences with new CISA and the old CISA programs.
Great, thank you. There is one question: what is the minimum pre-qualification needed to get registered in CSAA? I think you mentioned.
It's undergraduate degree in a related discipline, and on case-to-case basis, we can relax this exemption as well, requirement as well.
Okay, great. One relevant question is that there are students who might not be able to pay this 2,200 or even the discounted fee. Is there any scholarship or other opportunity for them?
Okay, I think it was last year. I may be wrong. Maybe in the last 2 years, just to be on the safe side, we launched the scholarship scheme program, and we offered scholarships of up to, not up to, but exactly $60,000. We invited applications, and the applications were taken to the education board. The education board shortlisted the applications and finalized and issued the scholarship to the respective applicants. This is something that we did in the last 2 years, but I believe this is not going to continue in the future because we have already reduced the price by 70% if you register through candidate registration centers such as Minhaj Advisory, such as Taif Digital Institute. So you'll be able to access these qualifications at very affordable fees. And those who are still not able to afford, we offer 4 installment and 2 installment plans as well.
That's fine. Thank you. Another question that there is one Gentleman, he says that he is a Islamic microfinance regulator at Central Bank of Gambia. He's interested in pursuing CSAA. He wants to ask whether I can do the exam in Gambia online. I think he can do it, right?
Unfortunately, we don't have an exam center. One thing to note is that even if you are doing online examination, you still have to visit an approved exam center in that city. So, and that is because of invigilation and supervision requirement. There has to be somebody invigilating you while you are appearing for the exam. There is another option as well, the home exam, which we do not publicly announce or tell or inform anybody. This is available to very exceptional cases. So if there is absolutely no possibility of conducting an online exam at an approved exam center in your city, then we may consider conducting a home exam specially for you. Okay.
Sure. Great. Thank you very much. Like I think there was another question. I think I don't know. I don't see it here anymore. There was one colleague. He asked. He said that he is a fellow chartered accountant, and he would like to know what is like. Why should a person who is like a qualified chartered accountant and fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, why should he be a fellow of CIPA of IUFI?
Okay. The first question of the presentation was.
He mentioned he is a CFA already.
He said that he's a fellow chartered accountant, FCA. He mentioned FCA. Yeah.
Okay. What I was saying was the first question of the day was why should you pursue IUFI fellowships? And I went through all the points. I believe that if you apply the three-pronged criteria that I've shared with you on IUFI fellowships for yourself, then you will arrive at a conclusion by yourself, and that would be a better decision rather for me to tell you why you should pursue IUFI fellowships. One of the reasons I can give you is that if you want to pursue a career in Islamic finance, so being a chartered accountant doesn't necessarily mean that you automatically become a fit for Islamic finance industry, because the Islamic finance industry carries some specialized knowledge base and specialized skill set, which is not available in conventional knowledge base and conventional skill set. In order for you to acquire that specialized knowledge base and skill set, you have no option but to pursue Islamic finance qualifications. And I personally believe the best qualification out there in the market for you is none other than the IUFI fellowships. And to be more precise and exact, I believe that the CISA qualification would be a better starting point for you rather than the CIPA qualification, even though you have an accounting background.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Brother Farhan. Let me see. I will take some one or two live questions, and then before we will conclude. So, anybody? We see 3 hands raised. Hassan, can you not? I raised it by mistake. Hassan, can you identify one or two of them, and then we just ask question before we let Brother Farhan?
Sure. I'll take Nawaz Badruddin.
Yeah, okay. Nawaz Badruddin.
Brother Nawaz, you can unmute.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah, Brother Farhan and Brother Ziad, for the excellent presentation. My question is that if a candidate is completely qualified for an exemption, should he pay for the exemption fees? Is there any exemption fees applicable for this? That's question number 1. And my second question is that as a candidate, right, I'm from Sri Lanka, prior to the registration of the examination, is there a way we can get an idea? Like say, for example, if you take the CIMA and the other qualifications, they do have some mock exams, examples and things like that, where you can go and browse it. But when it goes to the IUFI, we don't get an idea in that nature. So could you kindly explain me that why, what is the reason? These are two of my questions.
Okay, so the first question is that if you get exemption from a certain module, you still have to pay for the module fees, right?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
The answer to this question is yes, you have to pay because we do not charge based on module fees and PER fees. We charge a general fee, which is the SEPA fee. Okay, we do not bifurcate or we do not assign uh, cost to different components of the SEPA program. Even if you get an exemption, the price that you need to pay is the total amount, which is for the SEPA fellowship. The benefit of exemption is that you don't have to sit for the exam. You don't have to study for the exam. You don't have to sit for the exam. Or you don't necessarily need to pass the exam, which helps you to fast track your journey in acquiring the SEPA fellowship. Again, there is a possibility and there is a risk that you might not pass the exam, in which case you have to pay the reset fee. So getting an exemption is an important deal. It's not a small matter. But unfortunately, yes, there will be no exemption in fees just because you have exemption. What was the second question?
He was asking about some mock questions, that if there is any mock questions set available so that they can prepare.
It's a very good idea. Actually, what we did was we we had sample chapters of each of the modules. Um, I don't remember whether it's still on our website, but I can say with assurance that it was there, but I think it was taken down. What I'll do is, after this presentation, inshallah, after this webinar, I'll try to upload sample chapters of all the 4 modules of the TIPA program and also some sample questions of each of the 4 modules on the AOP website. So just give me 2 weeks time, inshallah, and you'll find these 2 resources on the AOP website. Thank you for the suggestion, by the way.
Great, thank you. And just to let you know that since we will be launching today the CSAA and CIPA preparatory classes through live, and mock examination and preparing you for that is also part of that session. So you may register, you may check the links that will be shared and that will be there. But like Brother Farhan very kindly suggested that those will be available on their website as well. I think, Hassan, can you take Brother Abdul Jalil? And I think that should be the last one.
Abdul Jalil. Abdul Jalil, you may unmute yourself, brother.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Greetings of the day. Thank you very much, Mr. Zia and Mr. Farhan, and also Mr. Fahd. Please, I would like the facilitator to speak more on CPD. What do you mean by this? I've been seeing it all this while, but I don't understand what it means.
We cannot hear you well, brother. We cannot hear you well.
Please, can the facilitator explain what CPD means? CPD, I don't understand it.
CPD?
Yes,
You want
point.
to know what is CPD?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
How does
CPD.
it work?
Okay, thank you.
Very much.
Brother Farhan, you want to explain CPD? CPD is continuing professional development.
Yes. And this is a requirement which is there for all the international qualifications in the world. It's not unique to IOP fellowships. The idea is that you should not just assume that just because you've passed an international qualification, there is absolutely no need for you to increase your knowledge base and improve your skill set over the next few years or so. In fact, the requirement by the international qualifications is that you must prove that you invested X number of hours or conducted X or were involved in X number of activities in a given year so that you may be able to continue with your professional qualification. Otherwise, if you're unable to prove CPD hours, you no longer are able to claim a fellowship or membership of that qualification. So this is something that we have adopted as a best practice from the international community. We also have CPD requirement. All SEPA and CSA fellows are required to fulfill 60 CPD hours in order for them to continue calling themselves SEPA or CISA fellows.
Thank you very much. We have already taken a lot of time from Brother Farhan. Brother Farhan, it was very interesting, very informative as usual. Always a pleasure to listen to you, and always we end up more excited on any topic that whenever you talk, we, we feel more energized and more excited for the topic. And today, like we feel energized. I personally, I'm not qualified SEPA or CSA. I'm personally made me think seriously to actually start working towards that as well. Thank you very much, Brother Farhan. And thank you very much, all. And before we conclude, I would like to announce a few things. First thing is that the Taif Digital Institute, as we have put on our page, we are a registration center for IUP examination as well. So you can register through us, and inshallah, we will be doing several other programs promoting Taif, promoting IUP fellowships, inshallah. Both these programs, inshallah. Similarly, we are today announcing two self-paced programs. One on SEPA, which will be like a self-paced program whereby you can attend the program at your convenience. These programs, as Brother Farhan mentioned, and I need to highlight as well transparently that these are not endorsed by IUFI, but like these are there to support this program. These are independent programs from TAIF, and the instructors that we have for SEPA are like some of the prominent names. Hassan, can you go up? Like Brother Mufti Yusuf Sultan, he's a master trainer for IUFI. Mohammad Shehzad Hussain Misbauddin also is a master trainer for IUFI, and Safina Shahid. These are like you can attend these courses online at your convenience, and you will have access to the instructor, and you will be given a mock exam as well. Similarly, for CSAA, Brother Hassan, do you have the page for them? CSA as well, we have, you can show me the banner. You don't have the page.
Sure.
CSA as well, we have a self-paced program that we are launching today. You will be able to attend this self-paced program. And we have like 3 prominent scholars who will be like doing this exam. And this exam also is an independent preparation from TAIF. It is not endorsed or not from IUFI. So it is, but it is to support and let you prepare for IUFI examination. With this, unless Brother Farhan, you have some concluding remarks, we are almost at the end of the session.
Thank you, Brother Zia and Brother Fahad as well. I just want to add a couple of things. First is that I've had the privilege and honor to go through the e-learning system that we've developed. Um, and I can say with full confidence that the system is state of the art, high powered, as cutting edge as it can possibly be. And I also want to say that I personally know almost all the CISA and CIPA trainers that you just showed, and I can assure you that they are highly competent in the art and science of it. In fact, most of the trainers are CIPA and CSA fellows themselves, so they really understand the qualification inside out, in addition to understanding the standards as well. And not only that, some of them are actually master trainers. So we have officially recognized them as competent and authoritative trainers in the field of the standards. So I personally believe that the work that you are doing, mashallah, is definitely instrumental. You, it's not just about promoting IOP fellowships. What you're doing is promoting the cause of standardization and harmonization of best practices in Islamic finance. Now, this is a topic, the topic of standardization, harmonization of best practices in Islamic finance is a very important topic, and not many people truly understand its significance. And inshallah, we'll have a webinar with Taif Digital Institute to talk about this all important point. Because let me again re-emphasize, not just about fellowship, it's about the cause. So you're promoting the cause, and this cause is associated with the integrity of Islamic finance. If this cause is promoted, then the integrity of Islamic finance is so very noble, very huge task as well. I congratulate you and your team, Taif Digital Institute, for taking inspired initiatives such as the launching of the online e-learning program in C.CSC. AOFE is with you. AOFE is at your disposal. Inshallah, we'll support you in all the way possible. And my appeal to all the participants would be to please register yourself for the programs through the Taif Digital Institute. I can assure you, inshallah, the trainers will do justice with the syllabus and the modules of the two programs. That's all from me. Thank you so much, brothers.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. So kind of you. And with this last request from all the participants to remember us during these last few days of Ramadan. And yeah, before I forget, like we are doing something different this Eid day. Brother Farhan, I have sent an invitation to Brother Umar and yourself as well. And all the participants, you are also invited. We want to do something different on this Eid. We cannot meet, hug, and kiss each other as we used to do, but at least we can meet virtually. So what we are trying to do is to do Eid gathering, or we call it Eid Milan or Eid get together. So whereby we will be opening, like talking some of our colleagues in different parts of the world, and then understanding each other better, that how they in Malaysia, how the Eid is celebrated, what they eat, how they say Eid Mubarak, and have fun. So it will be a fun program. It will not be like a serious program as we used to do daily. Yeah, this is it. Thank you, Hassan, for bringing it up. Thank you very much. So all of you are invited to attend this gala, and there will be lots of discounts. We will be giving out what we have decided, that all the courses that we have, there will be lots of courses. If any of the courses you are interested in, there may be, we will be giving out several of the courses for free. So just attend the course. Thank you very much. With this, we come to the end of this session. I once again thank Brother Farhan for your kind words, and for all the participants who have spared their times today. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This brings this session to an end. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.